Welcome to the Peak Performance and Peak Satisfaction podcast with Master Executive Coach Sherry Gregoff. Sherry helps business people perform better, get rewarded handsomely, and actually enjoy their work. After having her own career turnaround, she now helps other high-powered business professionals experience the same. Join the movement to work differently.
Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. Overcoming adversity is a part of business just as much as it is a part of life. Despite what someone's social media profile would tell you, everyone has challenges and negative circumstances at different points in their career. In this episode, I show you how to capitalize on what I call the second window of opportunity for more success and satisfaction. Before we jump in, I want to shout out one of my clients who had a win in this area. Here is the quote from her. "Sherry, you worked some serious magic on my mindset. I showed up as my best self in each interview of final rounds the whole day. I also noted how I felt about each of my interviewers too, as we both look for fit. Thank you for everything so far. You are a great coach." As this client navigated the usual cadence of any job search, rejections, interviews, she started to feel the overwhelming sense that it was taking too long. We uncovered her expectation on how long it would take to find the right job was completely arbitrary, so that helped remove some pressure. That brought up some bigger topics forged over the course of her career: sexual harassment, trusted managers who then turned out to be not trustworthy. The adversity came to mind and started to combine with the job search not being completed, and she started losing her confidence. I helped her remember that through that adversity, she has experienced a victory story over and over. We re-underwrote her leadership identity and the strengths she brings to every business endeavor she is a part of. This was a matter of remembering and then practicing the more accurate assessment of where she is and what she has to offer. This is what she later described as magic on her mindset. We did it together, and she felt her best telling the story of her career and how she could help the business in her final round interviews. Similar victories are shared by all of my clients, and I have experienced it too in my own career turnaround. So let's hop to today's podcast content and get you on your way to experiencing this also. I've had clients who, in a moment of despair, have said, "I'm tired of being resilient and tired of overcoming adversity." Adversity, as we know all too well, comes in every area of life, including work. At work, it might be a layoff or termination, discrimination or harassment, a demotion or being passed over for promotion, decreasing compensation, just to name a few. In life, it could be a health diagnosis for us or someone we care about, a divorce, losing a child, infertility, to name a few. Even those short lists, they are doozies. No one has this as their vision or openly signs up for adversity, but it comes. There will be trials in this world, and they won't feel earned or fair. Sometimes they are of our own doing because we make mistakes, sometimes big ones. Sometimes it will be completely random, what someone would call bad luck. But now that this adversity is here, we have our second shot at greatness. The first shot is us being successful at the endeavor or not, things around us working out or not. In the case when we are unsuccessful or our circumstance is one of challenge, then we have the second opportunity next of how we handle it. Do we quit? Do we back down? Or do we take whatever value we can find from what happened and succeed in responding to it? So often we let that first window of opportunity not going as hoped seal the deal on the second opportunity being negative too. Our brain sets off to wallow or judge ourselves or our hand that we were dealt, and we miss this even more valuable moment to choose a powerful response. My hypothesis for you today is that second window of opportunity is far more important. To illustrate this, let's look at examples. First, a less emotionally charged example. We are business people, so let's look at an example in the business itself, and then we'll turn back to careers next. When I was leading teams, it would often be high stakes, with any errors potentially costing millions of dollars. Errors were a big deal. If I took a call during family dinner, the kids knew what that meant. There was an error, which only happened a couple times a year. I would coach my team members in this way. The error happened. That was window one. Sometimes we caused it, sometimes other people did. But here we are with a serious issue. Then there is this second opportunity, how we respond next. Failure there might mean hiding the error, minimizing the error, not handling it timely, avoiding blame, withholding information, denial of what occurred, frozen or emotional about the outcome of the first window of opportunity, and an inability to shift into action to resolve and prevent. While disappointment about a costly error in window number 1 was uncomfortable, a poor response like this on window number 2 was intolerable and even career-ending. Success in window 2 looked like this. Recognize immediately that something is off and escalate a potential issue even before all of the facts are known. Communicate urgently and early. Gather facts and timeline and make them transparent. Engage appropriate parties. Take responsibility. Propose ideas to resolve and prevent recurrence. Remain cool and calm for your highest level thinking. When an error was responded to in this way, the leaders involved would earn respect. There would even be gratitude for having the responsible and constructive response. An unfortunate situation could actually build confidence and credibility because everyone knows that things happen in business, things go wrong, but how we handle it is even more important. When we turn to our careers, though, this can feel harder to apply. Consider the example of searching for a new job. What I find more often than not is that we say things like, I'm not sure this will ever work. I'm not sure I'll ever find a job. I hope it does. I hope it works out. That doesn't sound like hope at all. That sounds more like a wish, like a stretch of the imagination with very low probability. When toddlers are learning to walk, we don't observe them and say, I hope they learn to walk. When they fall down a lot initially, we don't conclude that it's not going to work out for them. Imagine if we did for a minute. If it was hard for a kid and we couldn't bear to watch them keep falling, so we stopped encouraging them to try even. We made them feel better about continuing to crawl. We didn't believe in their resilience to keep getting back up after a fall. Maybe we thought it was too traumatic for them, so we took measures to prevent them falling or experiencing the disappointment and frustration. We stopped telling them they could do it. We stopped creating opportunities for them to try and fail. We give up on them. They give up on themselves. By creating conditions of comfort, we deny them the accomplishment and joy of overcoming the challenge and mastering the skill and the situation. It's a funny example, but it's real. If a sweet baby we look at and say over and over, you can do it, and we celebrate even 2 steps taken before falling, and we applaud them and encourage them so they keep going until they know how to run, skip, and jump. What would happen if we explored a similar approach with ourselves? If, like that toddler, we kept saying to ourselves, you can do it, and we celebrated every next step taken without falling, and we were kind to ourselves when we fell, and rooted us on to get back up and go again? What if we applauded and encouraged every effort and ignored the falls so that we always kept going, just like that toddler? Maybe we need to question what it is we think is certainly 100% possible for us. Let's take a different example. When we finish school and set out for a full-time job, we don't say, I hope I find work. We decide, I'm going until I get that full-time job. It's a done deal. We don't look at graduates and say, I hope they find work one day. Well, some of us might at the time of this recording, but that's a topic for another day. What we do know is that failure is not an option. Maybe it's a job outside of what we originally desired, but we know that we will find and accept a job somewhere in order to support ourselves. So it's not a hope, it's a definitive, defined, and certain mission. Beyond babies learning to walk and recent graduates finding a job, it's fascinating how we might put everything else in this category of hoping for something. For today's podcast, let's turn back to our careers. Maybe after a layoff, we might say, I hope I find a job. What might be more accurate is to say, I hope I really like the jobs I find that will hire me. But by not being precise here, we are getting in our own way. Everything seems uncertain. There is no end in sight. We might tell ourselves, I can't find a job. Here again, what we may really mean is, I can't find a job that meets my criteria to even apply to. Or, I can't find a job that I like who has offered to hire me. We can choose to secure and accept a job always. It might be a barista at the local coffee shop, so we would rather not spend our time doing that work or being paid that level for our time and talent, but we always could find and secure a job. Staying with this example, it helps to recognize that you are in the second window. The first window in this case was the job loss. Once again, it may have been caused by your actions, or it may have been outside of your control, but it happened and is done. Now, you have that window of second opportunity of how you will respond. Saying I hope a lot is just a reflection of your internal calculations of low probability that are likely arbitrary or based on what you have observed from afar of other people's experiences. So let's think about what a powerful and successful response would be here instead. I'm getting a job. My new job is securing my next job. I work at 9 to 5. I keep going until I find the next best spot for me. There is no quitting. It is done. Just like we know a baby will figure out walking and a graduate will secure a job, we can have that level of certainty that we will be proud of how we responded to this adversity. That may feel out of reach to you in whatever situation you are currently in, but it's a choice and then a practice. Here is what I mean. I'm sticking with the layoff example, but this applies to any career setback. Overlooked for promotion. Annual comp review didn't land on the outcome that you hoped for. The job you applied for as a step up didn't come through. Each day of your job search after a layoff or day of work after a setback may start as a pity party. Why is this happening to you at your age? This wasn't in the script. You thought your career would be different at this moment. We can get swept away in grief, grieving an expectation we had that didn't get met. It may show up as anger to that new leader that stepped into the role and seemed not to like you from the start, or anger towards a company that you gave many years of hard work to, and now they seem ungrateful. It may show up as sadness or self-judgment on how you messed things up, even embarrassment that this happened, not wanting to talk about it, noting how everyone else's careers seem to be flourishing. These are just some of the tough emotions that I find take up the majority of time in someone's job search, or even in their work period as they look around and feel disappointed with where they are. The emotional turmoil associated with not having a job or not achieving the career goals that you have. There may be an identity crisis when your title you see as your primary identity, and now it's gone. The ability to provide, gone. You may start to question your competence. This is like an emotional vortex that can crowd out any constructive action taking, or can color any action taking like a rain cloud overhead. If this is your mental state and you head out to that job fair or networking event, what do you think your chances of having productive conversations will be? Will you attract and engage desired employers? Probably not as good outcomes than if you were clear-headed and confident. Would you be more apt to even pause the search? I see this a lot. I'm just going to take time to regroup and clear my head first. Then that break stretches on for months or years because this negative swirl is happening. Or an entitlement can swoop in. I'm applying to 10 more jobs and that's it. It's all I can do. If it doesn't happen then it wasn't meant to be. Think back to that toddler and imagine you're reasoning with them and trying to walk again. But Mom, I fell 10 times. That's it. I'm out. I'm not meant to walk. What if instead, in our example of the job search, you decided failure was not an option? Of course, you are going to secure work, just like you felt when you graduated school. There's no other option. It's certain. So now it comes down to the quality of my actions and the quality of my mindset that determines what type of role and how quickly I secure it. This is a great motivator to keep getting back up and taking steps forward. All the time that could be spent in the emotional vortex, you now are reallocating to steps that move you forward in progress. Let's lock this in with a powerful tool you can use to really cement this for you whenever you find yourself in that second window of opportunity. When we look back over the adversity in our careers and in our lives, we think our story is set in stone, tattooed on us, imprinted for life and all that comes with it. An open wound, really. A shame or hurt blanket that we are used to reaching for. A soundtrack that replays. We get triggered around that topic. We retell the story in our head of those challenges that occurred. It's like a well-worn record or your favorite playlist in your music app. But truly, it's just one version of the story. In my coach training, I received in-depth training and practice around how in every situation there are objectively observable, neutral facts. And then there are the individual perceptions of those facts. One might say fact or drama. Taking this a step further, though, I stumbled into this tool in real life. I was asked to speak to a group of young people who were experiencing or were likely to experience the adversity that I had lived through myself in my career. In preparing a talk for this group, I noticed something fascinating. When the mission was to empower and inspire others, I had a version of my story that was factually true, but also constructive and helpful. I knew no one wanted to hear my sob story or horror story. They had their own to dwell in already. What they wanted to hear was how I overcame it. They wanted an example of someone else taking that second window of opportunity and how they responded and what they did next that turned out to be a victory story. I realized this empowering version of what occurred didn't just inspire and help them, it did the same for me too. So I started locking in my victory story. Anytime a trigger came up or a memory that would typically prompt my old soundtrack, my favorite record or playlist of woe, I flipped to this new favorited track instead, my victory story. The more I did this, the more I took my power back from the adversity and owned my present and future. I met with a client recently who told me he was asked often to speak to young people encountering the same adversity that he had just overcome. I asked him about the ending of his story. He explained the powerful good that was born out of that adversity. I asked him how that talk compared to what he tells himself about what happened. He answered immediately that he skips the happy ending when he tells this story to himself daily. We hold on to the old version, the horror story, like a security blanket, even though it's full of shame or hurt. It just happens to be our routine, our habit. And here's the kicker. We do this even when we have discovered the victory story version, the version of what happened that's more constructive, the one that grew you into who you are today, the one that showed you what not to do. the one that showed you how powerful you are, the one that made you more empathetic and deeply compassionate with adversity that others encounter too. In our careers, it may feel like your crucible moment, where you could have sunk, but you swam, or where you thought the challenge was going to overshadow you, but it didn't. There are different versions to every story. You get to choose if the horror or the victory story is more accurate. That will direct whether you stomp around in anger, or tiptoe around fragile, or walk confidently, knowing your resilience and your commitment to creating a better future, one way or another. Knowing your victory already lived out and confident of the ones to come. And here's the thing. What's in question isn't even so much which version is more accurate. What's in the past is over and done, accept your memory of it. So why not make it the most constructive and helpful version that you believe? This is when we search for evidence and consider how it might be possible that what seemed negative in the moment turned out to be good for you later. A difficult circumstance or a mistake that you learned from. A closed door that allowed a better one to open. A sacrifice that seems small now in the better future. When we start to explore all the good that can come from adversity, our brain won't want to. Like when I ask my 13-year-old an open-ended question, and he responds, "I don't know." And then I say, "But if you did know, what would it be?" And he looks at me and says, "Mom." Ask yourself the question, and don't let yourself off the hook until you find your victory version of the story. If part of you feels resistance here, like, "Hey, Sherry, don't try to sugarcoat what's happened to me because it was horrific." Know that I am not trying to take your heartache from you if you want to hold on to it with both hands. No one is saying it wasn't hard. No one is saying it should have happened. But now that it's over, why not use it to help you? Why not remind yourself of the true victory story rather than denying yourself the happy ending that is still unfolding? Shame and despair can be habit forming, but we can choose new habits. It takes practice. If you have ever done a mindfulness practice, this is very similar. You sit down and meditate, your mind drifts, you notice with no judgment, and you gently bring your focus back to your breath. This works the same. Your mind drifts to the horror story version of what happened that you have relived so many times. You notice with no judgment. You gently bring your focus back to your victory story as what is more helpful and even more accurate. And when you find yourself reverting back to the old horror story, notice how it makes you feel. If it makes you feel worse as you relive the horror story, and if you feel worse after doing so, it's time for an upgrade. We think we start life and start our career with a fixed set of strength and resolve. Over time, it gets spent on different hardships, is chipped away at, so later on, it might be dwindling. Actually, how it works is more like a muscle. Every adversity is like a tear, like we experience when intentionally exercising a muscle. As we recover, that muscle is stronger than it was before. That's exactly how it works as we navigate the challenges of work and life. We emerge stronger and better prepared for what's next. Not for the other shoe to drop, but the better future that we can create if we just believe that this isn't the end of a horror story, but a victory story being written all the time. When we fall, we are proud that we tried. When we get one step farther, it's worth the fall, because we know each one is a step closer to mastering moving forward. For the toddler, it's walking and running. For you, it might be working and living in a way that you love. Each challenge is tearing your muscle so it rebuilds to be stronger. It's the process. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Only choose to relive the victory story and start believing in yourself with the same resolve that we give that toddler. Until next time.
Looking for support in applying the principles and strategies in today's episode? Sherry coaches clients one-on-one as their trusted confidant and advisor, helping each client create the work and life they had only dreamed of. To schedule your complimentary career strategy session, go to sherrygregoff.com/apply to book time with her today. It's one simple step that can change everything.